will be my guide. May fail and fear surrounds me. You never fail, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name. Hallelujah, Jesus. And keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Oh. If that's your testimony today, I want you to lift your hands to the Lord. In the deepest waters, if your faith is strong enough, He will keep you above your standard. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of.
Good morning. If you're just tuning in, we welcome you to Pastor's Hour with our pastor today, Pastor Frank and Pastor Rosalinda. We are going to talk about what women want and men need.
Yes, we are going to talk about what women need and men want. That's what we're talking about today, right, hon?
Yes.
Yeah, and so this is my lovely wife, Rosalinda. As you might recall, we have been talking to you about what women need and men want. And, you know, I've talked to a couple of men about this subject, and they say, hey, you know, men just need a few things. And, you know, I know what they're talking about, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is what women need. And what women need is, you talked about it last time, what women need is they need to have intimacy. Is that right?
Yes. And intimacy is being listened to and validated.
Listened to and validated. And actually, they want emotional connection. That's one of the things that we talked about before, is what women want and what women actually need. God created humans and all of us for a relationship, but He made women more emotionally connectable and connect. You know, that's so much more important to women than it is to men, and that's what you had said, is you want to know that you're loved, accepted, and approved for who you are, not what
That's
you do.
right.
Is that right?
Exactly. Not what I do, but who I am.
Yeah, who you are. And so you want to be known at a deep emotional level, I think you talked about.
Yeah, that's very important. To be able to say how I'm feeling, whether it's a good or not it's so good feeling, but to be accepted that way and not be fixed.
Yeah, not be fixed. Wow, that's really something. And so we really want to, when we're talking about intimacy, what we're really talking about is that we are talking about a subject that some people think it's intimacy means sex, and we're not talking about that, are we?
No, not at all.
That's the easy part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what women need. And God created women to actually, I believe, what do you think about this idea? God created women with this great desire to be known, emotionally connected, and it kind of puts a situation in play where women can help men to become more of the people they were created to be, because if that's what women need, then my goodness, it's going to be a situation where they are going to kind of, I don't want to say force, but they're going to push or, let their needs be known So men really end up in a situation where they really kind of have to go into that emotional area and learn to become better at that. What do you think of that?
Yes, that's so true. And I know myself with Frank, when I wanted to be listened to, I really look forward to the opportunity if he could do it, because he didn't know how to really do that at the beginning of the marriage like he does now. So it took a lot of practice and patience for both of us
It did.
to learn to be listened to.
It absolutely did. And to learn to also, for me to be able to connect with you was to listen and to be able to let you know that I'd heard you.
Yes,
That feels so good, doesn't it?
yes, and that's called mirroring. And so when he would repeat what I had just said, then I knew if he really heard me or not, because he would either say what I said or say something else.
And or something. What many times what ends up happening is before we develop some of these skills, I would be kind of not there. And don't you find that women find oftentimes that men are thinking of other things? They're not focused on really listening to their.
Oh, absolutely. I
girlfriend.
could tell, yes, by looking at Frank, if he was really listening to me. Though he wasn't saying anything and looking at me, I knew he wasn't with me at times.
And how did that make you feel?
Just awful, like I just wasted my time.
Yeah, yeah. And so we therefore really have found in our research, and behavioral scientists and have really found that this is so vitally important. This concept and this part of what women need is intimacy. And so we've also been looking at, in the last times we've gotten together, we've been looking at what blocks intimacy. And one of the things that we wanted to both talk to you about today is what happens if we don't get proper bonding and we don't get proper attachment. There's going to be blocks to intimacy, correct?
Absolutely.
And so what we want to talk about when we say bonding is is kind of a psychological term, but real simply it just means that when you bond something, you glue it together, you bring it together. And so one of the things that God created is that we need this bonding. Little babies, infants, and toddlers need bonding. And so that really entails is that mom and dad, particularly mother, meets the baby's needs, a newborn baby's needs, all the way up until approximately 2, meets those needs and meets them timely with a smile on their face, and meets them when the baby has needs. How does the baby talk? How does the baby tell the parents or mother that they have needs? You've raised 9 brothers and sisters. They tell them with crying.
Crying.
Yeah, crying.
That something's wrong.
Their voice is known. And so what happens is that if that baby, psychologists and behavioral scientists tell us, if that baby doesn't get their needs met in a timely manner, that baby goes to fear and eventually terror. And you end up, a child ends up in terror. That's not going to build trust. And God created babies to need parents, to build this trust. Trust is the key foundational piece for babies, infants, and toddlers to build a foundation for the next step, which is called attachment. And as you know, having raised you were actually put in a position of raising your 9 brothers and sisters because you had that many and mom couldn't handle all of it. It's not done too perfectly, right?
No, well, being firstborn, which is what happened to me, put me in a position where I began to mother my brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of work.
But you couldn't do it perfectly, right? I mean, there's
No,
too many of
there
them.
was too many, and I didn't really know how to do this.
Exactly.
Just wanted to help Mom.
Just wanted to help Mom. Well, one of the things that happens is that when I talked about the timely meeting of the child's needs, whether it's diaper change, whether it's hunger, whether it's gas, whatever it is, if that's not met, and what parents can do that, in the middle of the night, it's hard to wake up with a smile on your face, and it's very hard. This is very difficult. Well, the problem is if that's not done. Now, remember this guy, Dr. Spock, I think it was, he told, whatever his name was, he told parents in the 50s and 60s, just he was a pediatrician, said, let the babies cry. Well, nothing could be worse. Nothing could be worse, because what happens is the babies cannot trust from then on. And so if the trust is not built, and you did the best you could with your brothers and sisters trying to help Mom, if that trust is not built, then you can't have attachment. And if you can't have attachment, then what happens, there's a whole bunch of things that happen. And what happens is that the emotional connection cannot be built with the child. The parents are not trusted by the child because their needs weren't met. And so they have now become less than who they've been created to be. And what behavioral scientists and psychologists tell us is that they'll be looking for the rest of their life for love, acceptance, and approval that they didn't get from Mom and Dad because they didn't get the bonding wasn't proper. And so they can't get a proper attachment because Mom and Dad are the only ones they can attach to for a certain period of time. Now, when they get older and they get into adolescence, and I think you saw this with your brothers and sisters, is they start attaching to peer groups. They start attaching to different ways to be able to try to attach. But nothing substitutes for Mom and Dad.
That's right. God intended to attach to Mom and Dad.
That's right. He intended Mom and Dad to be the ones that would be his representatives. Problem is, that's very, very difficult to do. And if we don't have the proper bonding and the proper attachment, Rosalinda said in the beginning that intimacy for her means being known and accepted and approved, kind of no matter what you do. Isn't that what you're talking about?
Yes.
And that gives you joy, and it gives you kind of a feeling of contentment, would you say?
Yes. I'm being accepted as is. And what happens then is, because I'm accepted as is, then I'm more open to when the Holy Spirit wants to say something to me, because my heart isn't hard.
You've been accepted even with your mistakes, and your heart's not hard. Well, see, the child that grows into an adult that didn't get the bonding, so there's not trust with Mom and Dad, didn't get the proper attachment, they're going to have some problems with their heart, aren't they?
Yes.
And
Most
so,
definitely.
yeah. So what happens is that we have seen this over and over again as pastors of Joy Stone's Fellowship, that what happens is that people that didn't get properly bonded and well attached, they are always looking for acceptance, approval, and love. And what happens is they look for it in all the wrong places. I think this happened with your brother and sister. They look for it with the opposite sex. They look for it with something that can substitute that what they didn't get. They're always lacking, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, they're look for a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Some of my brothers join the gangs, and then it gets dangerous.
And so what happens is when parents don't do what they need to do, then adult children, in other words, children that have become adults, are going to lack. They're not going to have the ingredients. Like baking a cake, wouldn't you say? It's like baking a cake, hon? What happens is the ingredients, they're missing some ingredients, and that makes the cake many times not rise. It's not done. It doesn't taste good. Right?
Exactly. All the ingredients are so valuable.
Yeah, see, we have to have those ingredients. We have to have the bonding. We have to have the attachment. And when we don't, what ends up happening is we are lacking. And when we're lacking, we are in a place where we're going to be in pain. And we're going to talk to you in the next section here about pain, attachment pain. When we don't get properly attached, we're going to be living in pain. And we're going to talk to you about that, because that will absolutely stop intimacy. When you have a husband or a wife or a girlfriend or a boyfriend that is in emotional pain because they didn't get what they need, it will stop the plan of God in the relationship. And if it's a godly relationship and God's in it, it'll stop the plan of God, and it will limit this whole thing that women need. By the way, men need it too. God created men and women to need to be known at a deep emotional level. That's why Adam and Eve were naked and they weren't ashamed. After they fell, they were shame-based, and they also hid. So we're going to talk about that in our next section. If you are looking at this video on YouTube or Vimeo, then we want you to come to joystones.org. We have a lot of information at joystones.org that can help you. And this is a part of a series, and you'll be able to get a hold of this series by coming to joystones.org. So we're here because we want you to have the best relationships you've ever had. And we're going to get into that in the next section.
Just stay tuned. We'll be right back with Pastor Frank and Pastor Rosalinda from Joystone. And we're talking about what women need and men want. What women need and men want. Just stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's go right into it.
Never will run dry. It's an open heaven you're releasing. We will never be denied. 'Cause we're stirring up. We're stirring up deep, deep wells. Stirring up deep, deep waters. We're gonna jump in the river.
Talking about what women need and men want. And one of the things that we have discovered that Rosalinda is an expert at, because she's a woman, she's talked about needing intimacy. And you really defined that as, for you?
Yes. Real intimacy to me is being listened to and validated. By validation is, Frank would say, oh, I'm so sorry for, and then what I said. Another word also is mirroring. So he repeats what I said, and then I feel like, oh, he really did listen.
And he cares.
And he cares, right? And he cares.
Well, we have been talking about intimacy and what women need. By the way, men need it also, because God created us for relationships. Emotional connection is what we're all starved for, we're all looking for, and we all need desperately emotional connection. And so when we get emotional connection, we are in a good place. You feel really a lot better, don't you, when you and I are connecting?
Yes. I feel like I was really listened to, and that I don't have to carry whatever it is I'm going through by myself.
And that's an awfully good feeling. As a matter of fact, I'd say that when we're flowing together in emotional connection, there's joy, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Joy.
absolutely. Joy is the result. God gives us a reward for this thing called emotional connection. That is the attachment. Psychologists and behavioral scientists call this attachment. It's when we have an emotional connection. And the way we get an emotional connection is we have to be able to listen, and then we make sure the other person knows what Rosalind is talking about is mirroring. We make sure the other person knows that we've heard them. Now, this didn't happen for 99.9% of the people. This did not happen as children in the bonding process we talked about last time and in the attachment process. So what is the result of not attaching properly? Well, what the result is that a young child who is not attached properly to mom and dad will have emotions. God created us for emotions. Emotions are who we are in the moment. What we're feeling is who we are in the moment. If we're feeling sad, that's who we are in the moment. If we're feeling joy, that's who we are in the moment. So God wants us to be who we are in the moment. Well, if I am not properly attached, then the way God created our brains and the way this works is that I'm going to be in pain. Why? Because I'm carrying my emotions, like you said. You're carrying your emotions and you have no place to put them. Is that a correct statement for you?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's some things need to be carried by the husband and wife. There's some things you can carry with a close friend, but a lot of things need to be carried with the husband.
And so what happens is that if I have no place to talk about my emotions and my feelings, then you know what happens? I end up in pain. Why? Because I've been rejected. I have not had somebody to listen, to let me know that they have been heard. And so the reality to this is that I end up with a problem because I have no place to put the emotions as a child. And if I have no place to put the emotions as a child, I will then carry those emotions and that pain. The result of not being able to express emotions is?
Yeah, it's
painful.
Horrible place to be alone.
Horrible place to be. It's just incomplete. When we have no place with mom and dad because we can't trust them, we have no place to put those emotions and to share those emotions and share who we are. We've now been rejected for who we are. So what we do most of the time is we create a false self. In other words, we find out what makes mom and dad want to be with us. We find out what makes mom and dad want to listen to us. We find out what makes mom and dad happy. And you know what it always is? Something I'm doing. Something that I'm doing. I think that's what happened with you. Mom and dad wanted you to help with the kids, and so what did you do?
So that's exactly what I did. I went and helped with the kids, and it was a lot of work, and so, but that's what they wanted me to do, so then I would.
And you lost yourself.
Yes, I didn't really have time for what did I want to do, what was I feeling. Because there was so many kids constantly, every day.
Yeah, and so many things to do. And the problem is when Rosalinda lost herself, I lost myself. I couldn't trust my mom and dad, particularly my father, because of what happened to him. He was emotionally abusive. He was physically abusive. And what happened is I couldn't trust him. So when I grew up, I was very insecure. I was very needy. I needed to be loved, accepted, and approved. And I thought that Rosalinda was my all nurturing mother. I said this on another time, and you didn't want to be a mother.
No,
No.
not to my husband. I didn't.
No, not at all. So what happens is that when we don't get properly attached, then and properly have a place to know that we are okay because we have expressed emotions. But if dad or mom said, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, you're too sensitive, all those things that parents do because of their way that they were raised, what ends up happening is I'm sitting here as an adult and I'm empty. I don't have a place to be able to put my emotions. I'm insecure because nobody's mirrored back to me, like Rosalinda talked about, and said, this is who you are. Why? Because you are emotionally or in that place, what you're feeling is who you are. So if I mirror back to you that you're okay when you feel sad, you're okay when you're angry, and I don't fix you, right? That was one of the major things that we learned. And I don't fix you, and I don't make you change who you are, then what happens is I end up in a situation where I'm loved, accepted, and approved. And love and acceptance and approval will give me security. See, none of us can live in full and enjoyable lives when we don't have love, acceptance, and approval, really for who we are, not what we do. That's what you love about this process, is you have found a way, true, to be accepted for who you are, not what you do. If you make a mistake, you're not taken to the carpet, right?
Right. And once you learn to practice this, you'll notice the difference. Am I being loved and accepted for who I am or because of what I do?
And that's the problem, because if I'm being given, I don't even want to use the word love, and I think we've seen this. Am I really being given attention to because of who I am, or am I being given to for what I do? And you'll find out that most parents give attention to their children for what they do, not who they are. And that's really what's missing. In relationships later on in life, if I didn't get the proper attachment, the proper reflection back from the mirror, if the mirror was broken, and 99.9% of all of our parents' mirrors were broken, then I'm going to have a broken mirror. And that's what made our relationship in the early days very difficult. Is I was very insecure. I was looking for a mommy because I didn't get what I needed, and you didn't like that, right?
No. In fact, one time I was in my closet hanging some clothes, and I could hear Frank, and I knew, oh my gosh, he needs a mommy right now, and that's not who I am. And it was funny because I ran and grabbed a felt pen, and I had a wooden hanger, and I wrote really to myself, right now he needs a mommy, as I was learning this and studying this. And so I didn't give him an answer because I knew that that's what he was searching for, and he needed to get that somewhere else.
And I couldn't get it from Rosalinda, but that's what everybody does. That's what all human beings do. They lack this emotional connection. They lack being loved for who they are, not what they do. And we all know that if I don't do, I'm not loved. So what do? I do whatever I need to do to get some acceptance, some approval. See, love is an unconditional gift, and it has to be unconditional, because if it's conditional, if it's based on what I do, then it's not love. And so what ends up happening is that I end up then knowing that I'm not loved. And if I'm not loved, that's a horrible, painful place to be. So attachment pain is a very very difficult thing that all human beings live with, and it drives us to relationships that are we would rather be in a abusive or non-fulfilling relationship than to be alone. Nobody wants to be alone. God didn't create us to be alone, and so we don't like being alone. In fact, we will do anything not to be alone. Why? Because when we're alone, we got to face this emptiness. We got to face the fact that we were never loved for who we were, for who we were at that time. We just have to face that. And so Rosalinda and I have been through this whole challenge, if you will, of really seeing, oh my gosh, how do we be loved? How do we love each other for who we are rather than what we do? It's been a challenge, hasn't it?
Yes, a lot of work studying and practicing, and some yelling.
some crying and moaning and other things like that. But we've found out what works, and we know what works, and we've tried it and we practiced it at our church for years, and now we've got it going, and we've got other people that are actually ending up utilizing what we have discovered ourselves, and that's what we're trying to do. So if you're looking at this video on YouTube, what ends up happening is please come to joystones.org. If you're looking at Vimeo, come to joystones.org. We've got a series here called What Women Need and Men Want. And it's a powerful series. And we're going to be talking about the attachment, the results of attachment pain. How do we end up with this situation? So we'll be right back, and we're looking forward to talking about the next subject.
There is no guilt here. There's nothing left now.
And we are talking about what women need and men want. And we have seen the problem with trying to get to what all women need, and really all men want too. I want to be known at a deep emotional level by you, and I want to be accepted when I make mistakes. I think that's the biggest thing in our marriage, is I make a lot of mistakes, and I want to be accepted. I want to be loved and accepted and approved even when I make the mistakes. That makes me feel good. I know you do. Isn't that right?
Yes. When Frank would or does make mistakes, then at the very beginning, when I began to learn to be with him in his mistakes, and he had a hard time on himself. He was very hard on himself. So I would say to him, hey, hon, that makes you a human being.
That makes you a human being. That's right.
And so I kept saying that to him so he could get used to that I was going to be okay with the mistakes, and that it's okay that he be okay with himself as well.
Well, and see, that's what we all want. That's what children want. That's what adults want. That's what husbands and wives want, is to just be who they are. But we can't be. And why can't we be? We can't be because what we end up with is that we are lacking ingredients, as we've mentioned already, and we are lacking being able to be more the people that God created us to be, actually, because our parents didn't give us what we needed. And so now we're looking for it in a wife, or you're looking for it in a husband. And I talked last time about how I was looking for an all-nurturing mother. And Rosalinda was not wanting to be a mother. And I think that really affected our relationship early on, didn't you think?
Yes, it did. I had done my full, being a nurturing mother with my brothers and sisters, and then, with my own children.
Yeah.
So I was done, and I really liked how I could tell the difference of being, a mother and just being a good wife.
Well, and there's a huge difference. So some of you are probably saying, wait a minute, what is this attachment pain, and what are we doing, and why are you talking about this? I don't have any pain. Well, let me, Rosalind and I now share with you what science talks about, what you will relate to, I know you will, and what we've had to relate to, and why people marry the people they do, why they have the jobs they do. And it's because, can you believe this? The root cause of why people marry each other, the root cause of why people work in the work that they do, and the way they relate to each other is all based on attachment. That is a stunning statement, but it's true. And I'm going to talk about it this way. When little kids, toddlers and young children start to, they verbalize now, they've got a verbal language, they become a person. What happens is they want to attach. And so what do they do? What they do is they try to get mom and dad's attention. And when they try to get mom and dad's attention, they'll do it in many different ways. And so what are they trying to do? They're trying to get attention that really is supposed to be given to them freely, so we call it love, but they can't get love, so they get attention. That's a false substitute for love. And so, I know that you and I and everybody at the church and everybody across the spectrum of humanity and the Christian world, after they become Christians, we all still have the same problem. And the problem is we're trying to get attention. Now, we will do it in many different ways. We're not going to talk about all the ways now. We're going to talk about 3 distinct ways that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're all lacking attachment. And one of the ways is that we end up in a situation where if we tried to attach with mom and dad, tried to get their attention, and they didn't give it to us in enough times, and I know we know people like that, then what happens is those little children will give up. They will give up. They will say, this is too painful being rejected. It's too painful being rejected, and I'm not going to do that. And so what they do is they give up. Now, when they give up attaching, when they give up trying to get attention, what happens to them? Now they're stuck with all their emotions, and so they can't be in that much pain, so they shut their emotions down. These are the people in our world that are the shutdown people. We call them shy. They're not shy. They're just shut down. They have had to survive, shut down their painful emotions of rejection and the feelings that they could not deposit anywhere, and so they are shut down. They are called dismissives by psychologists. And dismissives do what? They dismiss other people. They don't work well with people because they do not know how to get attention. They've given up. And so when they gave up, what ends up happening is they end up in a situation where they are shut down. They didn't get to use their voice. They just gave up because their parents were preoccupied, their parents were too busy, their parents wouldn't listen to them, and so they gave up. And we know people like that in the church. We have a number of them, isn't that right?
That's true. Yes, we do.
And so they gave up, and what people that are dismissive do is they are non-people people. And so what do? They end up having jobs where there's no people involved, accountants, bankers, IT, information technology people, computer programmers. Those kind of people don't really deal with people. And so they lack something that they need desperately, which is attention. And they don't know how to get it, so they give it up. And I'm going to share with you who they marry right now, because what ends up happening, as we've seen in people in our church and other people, is that the people that are shut down, guess who they're attracted to? The people that tried to attach, but they never gave up because their parents would give them a little bit of attention, kind of like a carrot. They gave them a carrot. And so they are the distracteds. These are the 3 Ds. Keep this in mind. They're the distracteds. And distracted people are people that you know these people. They come into a room and they suck all the air out of the room. They talk all the time. They're always talking. They're always talking about who? Themselves. We know some people like that, don't we? We've seen them. And so what happens is they are the people that never gave up trying to get attention, never gave up trying to attach. So they're always looking for somebody to pay attention to them. So why do they talk about themselves? They talk about themselves because they're hoping that somebody's going to pay attention to them. But their difficult problem is that they talk too much. In other words, the dismissive doesn't talk enough, and the distracted talks too much. We've seen that, haven't we? So what happens is, guess who marries who? Guess how this works. The shutdown people marry the outgoing, extroverted people because the shutdown people need some attention, and so the extroverted people can get attention very, very easily. And the shutdown people think that when they marry the extroverted person, that they're going to get what they never got. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Trust me, it doesn't happen. So they go through the rest of their lives, and they may develop a little bit more outgoing because they can see that their wife or husband has this tremendous ability. But they're the men and women that God, I wish I could get my spouse to stop talking all the time and just listen to me once in a while. And it doesn't happen. Guess who? The distracteds. They are the ones that are salesmen, and they're also pastors. Can you believe that? Because they like to preach, and they also are not only they're public speakers, and they're outgoing people. They love to be customer service people. Why? Because they're always talking to somebody all the time. They get their energy by talking. Isn't it interesting? The dismissive, the shutdown people get their energy by being shut down. What a mess we've got in this whole situation. Isn't that amazing? We've seen it too, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen it. And then there's a third type, and that third type is the disorganized. 3 Ds: dismissive, distracted, and disorganized. What's disorganized? Well, it's a psychological term that basically says this: the child was afraid of their parents. I mean, very, very afraid of their parents. And that's me. That's me. I was raised afraid of my father, and I was shut down sometimes. I tried to get his attention other times. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. I didn't stop attention. I didn't look for attention. I didn't know when to get attention, when not to get attention, when to hide, when to not hide. I was a mess. I was an absolute mess. And so I had to learn to survive. So I came too strong, like I did with you in the beginning, remember? come on too strong in relationships or too weak in relationships. I was a mess, and you knew it.
Yes, I remember one time we were talking on the phone, and I think, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes had gone by, and Frank says, well, you can talk. Did you have something to say? I said, yeah, 20 minutes ago.
And so what ends up happening is we have been challenged. Now, the disorganized people, they don't know how to do relationships very well. Sometimes they're very, very good, and sometimes they're not, because a disorganized is very much in pain. I was in a lot of pain. All three types are in pain, but I was in a lot of pain, so I was angry. I was really angry, huh? I wasn't angry. I was a rager. And my lovely, all-nurturing mother wife took the brunt of that, didn't she?
Yes, I'd heard of the word rage, but I thought, oh, I wonder what that's like. Then I met Frank. Oh, that's what that's like.
Yeah, you could look at the definition of rage and just put my face there, right?
Yes,
It was pretty rough. And the reason I was so angry is because I had carried so much pain. See, the dismissive just dismisses people, so they don't have quite as much pain. The distracted, they're always looking, so they get something. But the disorganized, they're a mess. They get a little bit here, a little bit there. They don't know what they're doing. Now, what's interesting is because they're such survivors and they're angry, that anger turns into motivation. It turns into a drivenness. And that's what I had. I was totally driven to be somebody, so somebody would notice me. And what happens is that they're the ones that are the CEOs. They're the ones that own the company. They're the ones that are top-notch salespeople, not because they talk so much, because they're strong closers. They're the ones that tell people what to do, and they don't have a lot of really sensitivity. They can be sensitive. I'm a very sensitive man, but I lost that sensitivity in this process. And so who do the very seldom do dismissives marry disorganized. By the way, very seldom do shutdown people marry shutdown people. It happens. This is all on a continuum. I'm hopefully that you'll see yourself in this 3 different attachment styles, but it's not exact. It's on a continuum. You may be shut down a lot, or you may be shut down a little. You may be talking all the time and very, very talk, or you may talk a little bit less because you got a little bit more than the other people. It's all about what you did or didn't get. And so here we are. Rosalinda's a distracted. She's kind of a cross between a distracted and a dismissive, but she really was a sweetheart. She's a sweet lady. She loved to rescue, and here I am. I'm a mess. And so we got together. I'm attracted to this lady because she is a leader. She talks. She is in a health business, and she gives seminars, and she's not afraid to talk to people, were you?
No, it was, I loved it. Being able to, especially the people that wanted the help, because some don't really want the help, but those that wanted the help, I couldn't wait to explain to them what they were doing wrong, especially with their diets.
And really get help. Really help them. You wanted to help them. So you got energy when you were talking to people. You were on the radio. I put you on the radio. And you did very well on the radio, and it was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Yes. It was wonderful.
Well, here I am. Remember, I'm the rager. I'm the angry guy. And what happens is, you talk about no intimacy. I mean, for years in our marriage, we had no intimacy. and I, Rosalinda would say certain things. They would trigger me. We talked about triggers in another section. You can look that up. But we really, really had some difficulties. I'd come on too strong, too weak. I was too needy. I was a mess. How'd you put up with me, hon?
You're a human being.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Easy to say now, but Rosalinda actually left for 8 months. So we both come from previous divorces. So we know what not to do. And what we really wanted to do today is to prove to you that bonding and attachment is critical, and you didn't get it. So you need it, and you need it sooner than later. If you don't, you're going to be in attachment pain. And we were both in attachment pain. You were really a slave to your parents. And so you didn't get what you needed. And I was angry and frustrated because my father I was never secure. I never knew when he would go off or when he wouldn't go off. So it's a miracle that God put us together and that we were able to, by the grace of God, find this information. So what we want you to do is we want you, if you're on YouTube, please come to joystones.org. If you are on Vimeo, please come to joystones.org. We have a whole series here, and we know what women need. And by the way, men need too. We just didn't want to say it, what women need, men need. That's not going to work. What we're going to say is what women need and men want. Men don't know they want it. Don't know that they want intimacy. They don't know that they want into you, into me, you see. So what we're after is helping you, each of you, by today, showing you how important bonding and attachment is, how important it is to recognize you're in attachment pain, why you do the things you do, and then find out about dismissives, distracteds, and disorganized, because that's you in one form or another. You'll have in those three more of you in those three. Well, that's going to make for less intimacy. We didn't have it for years. And it's also going to make for a hard marriage. It's going to make things difficult. It's going to make things hard, because we shouldn't marry out of need. We really should be marrying out of a choice, not a need-based choice, but a choice because we're so full, we're so healed, and we're so ready for marriage. And we're going to talk about that in a coming 3-section set, which is going to talk about maturity. But until then, we're here to help you, and please come to joystones.org.
Thank you. If you're just tuning in, you